I was forced to take a red pill this year. I saw things that I couldn't possibly have been prepared for. I saw the blood-stained floors of Israeli families who had been murdered in cold blood. I saw people fleeing a rave be murdered on my phone. And when I saw these things, I wanted the people who were responsible to be brought to justice. But what I saw next wasn't that. What followed and unfolded before my very eyes was the mass extermination of an entire civilian population. I saw children who were orphaned screaming for their mothers. I saw a father carrying what was left of his sons through the streets in bags. I saw ice cream trucks filled with the bodies of women and children and unarmed men because the morgues were so full they couldn't take anymore. I watched war crimes committed every day through a screen in my hands. And while I couldn't do anything about it, I watched journalists give their lives to show us what was happening on the ground. I saw water, electricity, and internet be deprived from a civilian population who was already suffering unimaginable horrors. And I watched the media describe all of this as a war. But what I was watching looked like a massacre. And I know it wasn't just me, because then I started to watch the world collectively scream for it to stop, screaming at their governments through protests and social media and letters, begging Western governments to end the bloodshed. And I watched Western leaders of democracies ignore their people. And that's when I realized in this red pill moment that there is no such thing as democracy. They just want us to think that there is. I realized in the last 4 weeks that governments do not want what we want. Governments are not at all the same as you and me. I've realized deep down in my soul that countries and citizens do not start wars. Governments do. And governments seem to hold nothing but contempt for their own citizens. Around the world, our outrage was merely an inconvenience for the leaders of the Western world and their campaign against women and children and unarmed men. In the last 4 weeks, I've watched people in a faraway place who speak a different language than me, who worship in a different way than I would. I've watched them grieve their children in the exact same way I would grieve mine. I watched their children scream for help, and I wanted to help those little kids in the same way that I would care for my own in that situation. And I watched it all helplessly from a screen in my hand. And my heart was broken this year for people that I have never thought about before. They're so different from me. But in the last few weeks, I realized that they are exactly the same as I am. And at around the same time, I came to realize all of this. I watched my government and other governments try to convince me through the media that these people I was watching go through unimaginable suffering and loss. I listened to the media try to convince me that they were somehow animals, only capable of violence, and that this population somehow deserved what they were getting. I only heard justification and excuses. And as a human being, I sensed something that could not possibly be true. You know when you just know you're being lied to? That's all I have felt for 4 weeks. I realized that these people I was watching suffer unimaginable pain, grief, and horror had no more say in the attacks that happened on October 7th than I did when the United States invaded Iraq in 2003, or when the government of the United States, my country, helped plunge Libya into chaos in 2011. No one asked me. They just did it. And if they had asked me, and if they had asked you, you probably would have said, let me think. Fuck no. I'll never trust another politician or political party as long as I live. I will never support another war, no matter what the cause, as long as I live. Because we were all forced to take a red pill this year. And I don't think any of us are ever going to be the same.